Awesome. Okay, we are live. Hello, how are you?
Hello?
Hello. How
Hello
are you
again.
doing?
Fine, thanks, and thanks for having me here. It's a huge honor for me.
Absolutely. It's a pleasure to have you here. We were just speaking just kind of like before, and I asked you, how should I call you? And you were like, oh, okay, this is a story in itself. So maybe we can start from there. And I can ask you again, how should I call you?
Sure,
And you can explain the story behind the name.
yeah, it's thanks for asking because for me it's really way when people call me Crego or AL. My name is not AL, it's Adrian. It's a Spanish name, but neither my parents call me Adrian. Everybody calls me Cano. It's like a surname. And this was nice because when I started in Tumblr, my to think about my name, I think that would be nice connected with these all crazy times or social networks and privacy and and these kind of issues. I was really aware of them since my 14, 15 years because I saw them having born. So I thought it would be nice to place my real name as my artistic name. So it's a way of hiding me more in, let's say, in the internet, because when people look for my real name, that is my Israel Crego, they only find my work, they don't find my life. So it's a paradox that using my real name is my way of hiding my name at the same time. So Adrian is my name, or Cano is how everybody calls me.
Okay, and I guess my next kind of question is, you mentioned like hiding and like animosity and privacy. Why is that important to you?
Sure. I think it's more because I live the porn of the social networks, and I was aware how my inner friends and people and family was changing and reacting, and how the concept of privacy changed by one new that is I call extimacy, is the opposite of intimacy. So extimacy is a concept I work a lot because with social networks, let's say that a new kind of art is born that where is more important the image of the artist rather than their work. And for me, since I'm a child, for me it's more important the artwork than the person itself. So I decided to do that. On one hand, so people will try, is what I have in mind. People will focus more in my work instead of me. And on the other hand, because I'm it's good to be invisible today. I can work in the street because when my work went viral with street art back in 2014, it was a crazy month because people recognize me and everybody asking a lot of things. And I am photographer and poet, so I need to be alone, and I need to work alone in the streets. And and if I post things about me on my life, this is not my art. I am an artist. I'm not a model. So I think it's good because at the same time I can play with more entities because I have more, let's say, more beings that I am using, but they are not connected to me for music or for another kind of art, because I want to separate them. I don't understand my music or my poetry or my photography in the same pack, but at the same time all of them are feeding each other. So for me, the concept of privacy nowadays, people should difference between anonymity and privacy. Because I am not anonymous. People can contact me, and people. But another point is the who am I in the real life, and I want to be relaxed and not have to be depending on that. So I feel more free like this. And the impersonalization of the work, of course, because when you see, I don't know, you see a good artwork from the 20th, from the 15th century, you don't think about the physical of the painter, you just see the paint. But nowadays, if you think about I don't know, a Basquiat work, I don't know, this more recent, you think instantly on the person, and maybe you forget about the artworks. You understand? So I
Yeah,
think it's
absolutely.
contradictory, and it's hard. Even, and this is the reason I never had social networks too. And this was a way to know if my work will transcend without me pushing it. I just use Tumblr. I put my works there and never promote nothing. But my work was flying to IG, to Facebook, to another post. So it was a way for me to know if my work was transcending or not. Because on the other hand, I know a lot of people because I was working with them. That is people that is buying followers or buying likes to so their accounts grow, and ads and brands approach them because of these numbers. It's okay. I think I'm not against that. It's just that I don't participate in this kind of new game. And I have a real pulse of my work, I think.
That's so interesting. You know, I was just thinking about this morning, and I had a comment. I was having like a coffee with a friend, and I had a comment, and I just told her, you know, if you think about art history and a lot of the artists in the earlier kind, like ancient, let's say earlier
Yeah.
times, like I do not remember a single face or the
Yeah.
person of any. I literally, and it's so I think I saw a post or something on Twitter which kind of like sparked my my thought on this.
And we don't care.
And
And we
it's,
don't care. We don't even, with pass of time, we don't even care if the
yeah,
artwork is good.
exactly.
Unless you, as yourself, as for example Dali was in part himself a piece of his own, and in this case it's okay. And the same happens with Bansky. Even he's anonymous, his personality that is not real is a piece itself. Even so, Bansky create a personality that is Mr. Brainwash, is a real artist, but it was born from fiction, So Bansky is playing with this too, because he's not showing his face, but he's inventing faces and artists that are fiction, but nowadays they're real. So I think this is interesting, but not just remember the face of Basquiat or like nowadays that the face or your life is more important than your work. And when you die, this doesn't import anymore. Your work is what will remain, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess you know, I think like in a way, the space I don't think anymore now, but I mean, you've been like you know, in the blockchain, like in the NFT space for quite a while. Do you think it was more anonymous, or like privacy and anonymity was something that people would do more in the past, and now it's kind of like gone more into the mainstream, you know, social media, like follower likes, etc.
Yeah, I think like in everything, it's about layers. I mean, in everything that goes mainstream, there is the main layer that everyone sees. But if you dig on them, it's like in music. I don't know. In music, you the first when you focus in a new kind of music, let's say trap, last year happened. In the surface, there are the mainstream, but the mainstream are never the best in no kind of arts. Are the mainstream, no more. And why are the mainstream? Because people love what people loves. Is no more. But if you dig on this, you will find a lot of branches and a lot of about the blockchain. Of course, we all see the mainstream, but if you dig a bit, you will see a lot of people doing a lot of things about privacy, anonymity, and even people preparing new kind of platforms to be more independent. Or so I think blockchain is giving us as I always say that blockchain are like the bones or like the body of the internet, because internet was the nervous and digital art was the soul feeding internet. But blockchain is giving us a bones or let's say a exoskeleton that is allowing us to move finally, because all these past years we didn't have a body. It was all our work spread in the internet. But nowadays blockchain can work for this, for being famous or whatever in the surface, but allows you a lot of tools to keep working underneath, but preparing new platforms or new kinds of understanding and creating art. This a lot of ideas I had these past years, I couldn't do because I don't have this structure. Nowadays, I can do a lot of them, so I don't have to think about them because I have already prepared. And this is giving me a lot of creative freedom, and of course personal freedom, because until 2 or 3 years ago I was depending on commission works and branding works that I never liked, and now this is finally I can only focus on my own work. And this working is always nutritive because I am always drinking a lot of ideas, so more ideas born. And nowadays it's not only will be nice if this exists. It's now is let's do this, because blockchain is allowing a lot of people that may imagine a lot of people that never worked in this. Nowadays they are getting relevant for their work, and this is thanks for blockchain. and because they can prove their work is theirs and blah blah blah. Because my work was really stolen a lot, and I never had the chance to demonstrate that these works were mine. Think about that. I work a lot of GIF with GIFs, and when I had many some problems, legal problems with some big people, I have to not finally go to trial, but I have to speak with lawyers and this because they were using my works to promote their products. I had a problem that for legal, in legal terms, video and photo are okay. You can denounce, but with GIFs, as GIFs were always thought as something minimal from the internet, just for memes and for funny things. In legal terms, fighting for a GIF it was really hard because I only had the file of a GIF. But nowadays, I have a document that is the NFT that I can show to prove that it's a real work. So this was my struggle all these years, trying to make people understand that GIF is another format as is picture and video. And it's the most new and is the only created for and by the web. And at the same time is the format most underrated, I think, despite it's the only format in its natural habitat, I think.
This is really interesting, and actually I want to deep dive a little bit into what you've been doing for the last kind of 10 years, and also what does it mean to be a street art GIF pioneer? What is tell us a little bit about your practice so far and in the past, and how do you actually work within the street, doing GIFs, etc.
Sure. I think that there were two key points here, and one is that I always understood internet as a street, because back in the times when MySpace and Fotolog and all these blogs, I never used them, but I watched them. The fact that I never use social networks is not because I don't like, it's because I study them. So it was like streets. In some streets you will find more fancy things. In another street, then Wikipedia is like a big square where everybody can go and talk. So at the same time, I grew up in a really small town, so I never had museums, I never had cinemas, I never had nothing. So we have to think about how to do a lot with nothing. And I was really attracted by street art because it's out of museums. And I never like a lot the kind of people that only appreciate art inside museums. And then when I dove into street art, I start meeting this kind of people that were more from fine arts, but they want to express in the street and make people make art free. As now is working the blockchain in the streets of the internet, is the same. So this was a point, and the other point was I can remember perfectly because I had a lot of pictures of street art because I started doing photos since my 15, 16 years old, always with the camera. I tried 2 years today to do 2 years of a sculpture of a stone, but it was really slow, so I changed for photography again. And one day, looking my street art pictures, I realized about one thing, and it was by the days where the street art was really hyped with Bansky and blah, blah, blah. And I realized that street art is only street art for them, not for us. For us is internet art, because in my case, I never saw Bansky in real life in my life. But I know all his work. I know all his work, like everybody in the world. So I think, okay, so the internet is the street and street art is on the web. And I can't animate something in the street, but I can in the internet. So at the same time, I was since 2010 I was digging in GIFs, not in GIF art, just GIFs. It was a coincidence that this year I focus in cinemagraph technique inside GIF that allow GIFs to be more bigger, but in a smaller size is just a technique. So I mix these two worlds, the GIF technique with the street art photos, and place on the street of the internet. So I started to place on Tumblr, but I remember only two, my first one and then one more complex, and they go viral totally, and Google wrote me and a lot of blah, blah, blah. So at this point I understood that the street art is not only for the street. And this was really paradox because I was working a lot with the street artists all these years. I was in residence for months, and I work a lot with Mutante Creativo that are curators here in Galicia and street artists too. So it was a paradox because at the same time they were calling me to work with them, I was trying to explain them that their work must be on the web too. Yeah, no, in the web is not true. We have to work only on the street. Okay, no problem. But nowadays we are seeing that a lot of street artists are approaching the digital because they are understanding that in the street is okay, but you have to be also in the streets of the web. So this was the midpoint I think understood, and of course by then in 2014 my first idea was to doing augmented reality, but it didn't exist, this kind of technology, so I have to wait. And in this month, in these years, in these next years, I think I've animated more than 200 walls by now. Only the published ones, I have more. And I was working a lot in the streets with these people, and finally I decided to try to mix them with the blockchain. But the codes, the prism, the point of view is the same as 10 years ago. But now I can do it. It's the only difference.
And you mentioned before that GIF and GIF art is still kind of, not considered, or maybe not has the same consideration as like being a new genre and form of art that is basically born with the internet, essentially. So now, like, I can maybe like compare it to, we're seeing a big attention, a big boom, like this big kind of realization on like generative art, right? Like everybody's excited about generative art. Yeah. Like, how can you compare that to like GIF art, and why do you think it's not being, in a way, I don't want to say valued, but like attention is given to this form of art too?
Yeah, I think I know why. Because all these years I work with GIF, but I think a lot of it and study and speak with a lot of people and with more GIF artists. There is two big reasons, and the bigger one is that we've been 40,000 years thinking in picture mode, in static, from the caves, and at the same time in video mode, in A/B points, like a history. Like in films, even in theaters, the theaters didn't do GIF format. It's an A/B point, and GIF format born in the '87, so it's really new comparing with other kinds of art, because despite painting, photography or whatever is still, and then theater, movies, films, video is A/B. So these two kinds of art are already done, so they have an aura of gloriousness of the painters, the sculpture. Okay, and GIF happens the opposite, because GIF is really new. It's only 34 years old, and the thing I always say that GIF art was created the next day I was born. Exactly, my mother discovered it when I was 30 in the newspaper. Oh, GIF art, GIF is now 30, and it was exactly the day before. So I try to say that it's only 30 years old in front of 40,000 years of painting, like, for example. And add to this that GIF was born in the '87 for ad purpose. The first GIF ever done is an ad for a plane, I think a plane company, and it was always used for memes, for funny things, for not in an artistic way. And it has a reason, because when in the '80s, '90s, the computers were too slow, and for loading a GIF you have to wait hours, in this case of big GIFs. And another point is the screens. Until 10 years ago, 15 years ago, we don't have screens in our hands. In this jump, now we can see GIFs. So it was the jump, and it connects also with the big jump we live from the '90s, 20 and 2010. All the jump about technology and social networks and how life in the world changed. I realized that in this jump, that first nobody was doing pictures, only the photographers. With smartphones, suddenly everybody becomes a photographer. Okay, but suddenly with better phones, everybody becomes a filmmaker. And in this point that I was thinking, I thought, I don't even understand light and time to be a good photographer, but everybody is doing here film. And I thought, we are missing something here. And I focused on GIF. I said, why are not paying attention to this format that propose a new kind of creating, of doing, and perceiving life too? Because in life, when we, for example, in politics, we say, let's say the final picture of the elections, and you see a picture. Or let's see the history of from this year to this year. You see films. But if you think in some things in GIF mode, like I always say that we are humans and we learn by repetition. So these kind of things, when you learn, I don't know, a drum pattern, or when you are trying to learn something, you repeat itself. And I think, okay, we can mix that, this kind of thinking, and use GIF for this purpose. And this is the reason I could use video, but for me, video is not for loops. Unless you are doing it for video jockey sessions, because I am VJ too, and I use videos in this case. But for the internet, video will never loop, because it's a video, it's an AV point. So I prefer use GIF, despite this less considered, let's say, art that in front of a 4K video. For me, it's not. I always say the comparison between a video is a colonia, and GIF is the perfume. It's like the bonsai a tree. But I don't know. I think it's much better than 5 years ago. GIF, nowadays people is accepting GIFs as art finally, and this is good. And people is not allowing anymore, because when I say, people ask me, well, what do you do? I do GIFs. When I reply that, for people is, you do cats and you do memes. Okay, and like this, 10 years like this, and nowadays, okay, the people that I told this 3 or 4 years ago, nowadays they write to me like, okay, you do GIFs, but you do art. Okay, so this is the point, that when people hear listen GIF, the word, they instantly connect with memes and funny things and da. But nowadays this is changing, and I like it.
Do you think that this connection that people make is also due to, for example, like, as soon as you say GIF, in my mind, the first thing that comes up is Giphy.
Yeah,
and
GIF.
You know, like this platform that kind of like basically allows you to take any GIF and just use it. So do you think that that's also been the reason why it's kind of associated immediately to, first of all, something funny, but also something free in a way?
Yeah, thanks for this question, because Giphy contacted me before they opened, so I was there from the beginning. Since the beginning, I asked them to get paid for our work. One day I wrote an email to them like, hey, do you plan to pay your workers? So us, because we have billions of views there each day. So
yeah.
I agree, because when Giphy born, allow all the population to have a direct access to GIFs. But Giphy at first was born from art. They told us, in fact, they have a section of art, blah, blah, blah. But suddenly they realized that the let's say the big amount of GIFs are more about funny, and it's good, because it's a really emotional format, because you communicate more with a GIF than with an emoticon. And this is the reason, and what I said now is the reason why Facebook bought Giphy 2 years ago for $4 billion, or no, 40,000 billions, a lot of money. And I remember wrote them 1 year, I don't know, maybe 6 months before, about blockchain. I wrote them, do you plan to use blockchain? Because I wanted to protect my work. I did it not for money. I wrote them Giphy just to look a way to use blockchain to protect our work and all these billions of views connected to us, so we can have a pulse of our work. But they said no. And 6 months later, I read this new Giphy bought Facebook bought Giphy for a lot of money, and I wrote them this exact day, like, and now now you are thinking about paying us? No, we can't. But I think they finally will enter the blockchain. I don't know. And this is the reason I find sometimes quite weird these are people using our work in Giphy, and it happens to me many times. But then when you ask them for credit, hey, okay, you can use it, but credit because when you, for example, in Twitter, you share a GIF with Giphy, the credit doesn't appear. It's just a GIF. And I wrote to Giphy about that. You can credit because people happen to me, I think, with famous people that share your work, and you say, hey, thanks for sharing. For me, it's an honor, of course. Don't remove, just put that is mine. Okay, and they delete it. It's always like this. No, really few people. So sometimes it's for this reason, because it's a GIF, I delete it. But if it was a painting or if it was a 4K video, they will credit you, I think. But this last year is GIF art is being cleaned, let's say, and blockchain is helping it a lot, because now people can. It's sad that we have to value in dollars a GIF art to be value for people, but it's something necessary too.
Yeah, I'm also, thinking like, something that I think is interesting is related to this, like the, I don't know if it's the right word, the commodization, like the fact that like art becomes so easy to access, to consume, to look at,
Yeah,
um, that you don't, it all automatically loses value at the eye of the person who's kind of looking at it or like experiencing it. And similarly, like you were saying before, everybody who now has an iPhone, let's say, or a Samsung or whatever phone with like a, you know, a 4K camera, um, is can kind of self-proclaim themselves like a photographer or
yeah.
so like it's a really fine line between the two, right? Like,
Yeah, but you can read this line because this is the reason I usually post about that. That I never define me as an artist. I do things. Then people is who decide if you are an artist or not. Because I have a lot of friends that they say, "No, I am artist. I am artist." Yeah, but who more is saying that? Because I can say, and I wrote a tweet about that. That is the same as saying that you are a good guy. You can say it, but if nobody says, maybe you are not a good guy. So I hate the word artist because first nobody knows what art is. So you can't be what you don't know what it is. So in this point, people auto-proclaim, and it's good in one hand because it motivates you to believe an artist and photographer or what I say. And this is good because make you connect with more people and you learn a lot. And but it's bad in the way that you can't only believe your own voices because if you years ago I wanted to be a cinema director and do trilogies and do documentals in all the world, and suddenly I succeed with 6 frames that are GIFs. If I believe my own voice of being a director, I will fail, of course. And sometimes, so I put this in Tumblr. It was a way to read myself. What you post on the internet is a way to read what are you in, let's say. And at the same time, the easy way, as you said, the easy way of having internet, consuming and creating, I think this is about attention. I mean, nowadays almost digital is free, so the value is in the attention. If something grabs your attention, this has value because it's grabbing your attention. And this is the reason, or another reason I started do GIFs, because back in 10 years ago, it was not very common to see a lot of GIFs in the webs. So if you enter in a web that everything is still and you see a GIF, your eyes will go there. So I was trying to that. So nowadays it's the same. You see a lot. We all see, I don't know, thousands of works a day in Twitter new, but how many do you remember at the end of the day? In my case, one or two. The rest is like a copy and another one, and it's the same, blah blah blah. So it's hard, and because everybody can do it, but it's good too because we can have nowadays a way to measure our work instead only institutions and 3 rich guys. Nowadays, people is who is talking, and if you post something on the web, and the I don't know, and the politics of your town don't want to exhibit you, but you have 70 million on the internet, it's like this. It's no more. It's the taste, and nowadays is still we are still measuring art in terms of traditional art. So for me, it's sometimes crazy when I see themes being valued for I don't know for 1,000 likes, and another people has billions, literal billions, and this is a point I'm feeling since I entered Twitter that crypto art is really focused only on Twitter, and people is only looking in Twitter, and this is a mistake because Twitter is a really big part of the internet, and if we were looking out Twitter or even in Tumblr, even in Giphy, we will see that a lot of people were doing this since much ago and proposing even bigger ideas. And so for me, when I entered crypto art, was like in some way I have to stop and go back in the past. And the street art work are the example. A lot of people is telling me, "Oh, it's innovative, it's new, it's something original," but they were done almost 10 years ago. And the reason is, I always told, and people don't like, but the reason is because people understood internet first and as Facebook, then they put their heads in Instagram, and now they are moving them into Twitter, and they are omitting all the huge internet. So this is the reason that in these past 5 years, for people, internet was IG, and if you weren't in the internet, in the IG, you didn't see. I suffer it because a lot of people told me you should be on Instagram. You will have a lot of followers and blah blah blah. And people was doing what I invented years ago, and people applauding them. But I prefer not to stay because if I go inside, I got impregnated, let's say, with what I call amniotic culture, things that I don't want to know, but I know, like the Gangnam Style and these kind of things. I'm not interested in that, but it's everywhere. So my unconscious will be eating it. So I prefer always stay away of that. And nowadays it's happening the same, but with Twitter. Everybody who was in Instagram is jumping into Twitter, but they are again forgetting all the internet. Because if we were looking outside the Twitter, we will see that many things were already done years ago, but out of blockchain. Why? Because blockchain didn't exist no more, but it's not new at all.
It's really interesting, and I think like some of the conversations that I've had as well, for example, with like Jason Bailey and like even if you think about sometimes I think within the space we forget that like art existed before
Sure,
NFTs,
sure. This
and
is
and yeah.
a big point. I'm calling this the invisible wall. It's like because I know I speak with a lot of people by DM of this kind of people that we grew in Tumblr, and we know each other all. And nowadays it's like all these people that we're building this kind of digital art. I feel it, and all these people is feeling the same as me. That it's like we are being overlooked, and it's crazy because we are seeing things that we did years ago nowadays called new, and it's okay that this happened, but it's not okay because if we study a bit history of art, it's always happening the same, that we recognize people when they are died, because people started to understand 10 years later, but nowadays we are alive. No, we are not die, so we have voice nowadays, and this is the reason I truly thank you the opportunity to speak here, and the reason I joined Twitter to have my voice, because I think it's very important to have voice in this case, not in the way of attacking, because I'm not attacking the new people. I'm just saying that another ones are being forgotten that we're building this. As I always say, that crypto art is a natural step of digital art. It's nothing new. So when I speak with some people in Twitter, they told me about digital art, blah, blah, and I show my work from 10 years ago, and they say, wow, this is the same as today. Yes, because this is not new. It's a pity that for a lot of people, digital art has born with crypto art, and it's not at all. Digital art was born in the 60s. But in the shit for me, and this is the reason I always say the same, that I was doing digital art always, but the shit was creating not digital art and then upload to internet, but created online online art, let's say. I will call this online art more than digital art, because it's art created for the internet and by the internet. Everything stays inside. It's not creating a piece of video art for a wall and then record it and place it on the internet. So this is the reason I am working with digital public space in crypto boxes and this kind of places that I am placing stuff in augmented reality, not discovered yet, but I am doing the same. So yes, I would like the people dig more in out of Twitter, because they will find a lot of people that are really big, and they will say, wow, why this guy is dope. Not me. I mean thousands of people out, and I talk with them all day. I recite a DM from something from Tumblr, and how are you doing that? And they are suffering this because man, this guy is doing that. I did it 10 years ago. And, okay, and I think this will change soon, because many people is asking the same questions, and people is digging, of course.
And what do you think, and exactly like my question is like, what do you think is needed to make that shift and to make that change from, artists, but also other kind of like members of the community?
I think it's important key here are the collectors too, because I mean collectors will buy what they like, but most times they don't have good information to dig to understand where we came, because a lot of artists like me appear in Twitter because we understood that was the let's say the square of the internet where people was talking about crypto art. But most of us were grew up in another places, and most out of IG, of course, because we all already had this decentralized mind since years ago, not now because people is talking about decentralizing. I always thought about internet decentralized, and so when a collector find a new artist he likes, if he don't have a lot of things in Twitter, they don't dig a lot. And I'm feeling it because when some collector approached me and wrote me, I bought you this in super rare, blah, blah, I send more links for my old work and they say, wow, this is really old now. So what is needed is what are you doing right now? You is invite people who were before, during, and will be later to know their prism. And I know that a lot of people will tell you the same. I will send you some names later because you will know who they are, of course. And I think this is good because when people listen this, and as is happening to me in my DMs and emails, people start to understand better what is the value of each work. Okay, this has historical value. I understand the value of the first mint artworks. I understand perfectly. But this doesn't imply directly an artistic step, because minting a GPG is okay. The merit is minting it. But nowadays that everybody is allowed to mint, what is the merit of this? And in the other hand, there is a lot of merit, artistic merits. And let's say I always place the example of Scorpion Dagger. Is a guy who is doing animation since a lot of years ago, and he did a lot of years ago a book with augmented reality and a marvelous. So nowadays it's like we have to go to this past to demonstrate that we already did, and it's quite annoying because I don't like to do that. I will prefer that people already do. But if I don't know, if I don't do this, and these people the same, nobody's doing. And sometimes we feel like it's unfair because we haven't worked it all these years. We were waiting for this, and now they say, okay, we will that, but now we are outside of the building, or what is happening here? So this kind of interviews and people. There is a guy who was in Tumblr a lot of years, and nowadays he's in Twitter. I don't know if I can say his name, but I will. And he was doing, I think each month he wrote a post in Tumblr about an artist, a GIF artist. So he has a lot of them, and he was studying them. I talked with him a lot of times. He interviewed 6 months ago too in Twitter. And these kind of people, I value them a lot because it doesn't matter that our work is outside if then there is not a dialogue, a conversation about the uses of it. For example, in street art, it's not only animated walls. It's about doing it in augmented reality so people can enjoy them in the street. And in some cases, when the wall is erased, I rescue them because I use the facade of the building empty as trigger to place the wall again there. And nowadays the same, but in the metaverse, like in Super World, I can place my. So if we don't speak about that, I think it's normal that people won't think about it. But if we speak, is when they have a trigger in their mind and they say, okay, I'm the best. That this can inspire more people to do the same. To see that it's not only move a picture 2 frames, that you can interact with a whole world, with the blockchain, metaverse. And I don't know, it's really soon, let's say. We are really soon in this.
And when you talk about digital public space and like working with augmented reality, I want to know a little bit more about that. What do you do exactly and how?
I mean, in the virtual one or in
both?
Yeah, in both. Let's say in real life, in physical life, I like to. I use the verb augment reality instead. One thing is use augmented reality in one of your pieces. You can do a painting and augmenting it. But for me, the interesting point is augmented reality. Let's say there is a thing that I call recent archetypes. There is symbols in all the world that are the same, like a stop sign, like a Nike logo, like I don't know, a MacBook Pro. They are the same. So you can use these recent archetypes to augment it. So your work won't be only in a painting. You can augment all the world. Like I don't know, an ad. Imagine that Christian Dior make an ad really famous of a picture. You can augment it. You can put your place over it. I have some examples, but I don't want to tell them because I want to know how long can they stay until people discover them. But they are in the both in the metaverse and in real life too. And in the metaverse, I find it interesting because it's the same. I can go in the metaverse, I can take a picture in the metaverse. I am a photographer, but I don't care if it's in real world or in a metaverse. I take a picture, and then I can use this picture for a trigger to place my work over yours, like the graffiti style, when somebody bomb his logo in the street and then another guy over it. So it's not like a war, It's interacting with the public space, because at the very end, every public space is not really public. It's always inside some hands. So I like to play with this, and nowadays you have the real life, the metaverse, and then you can even play in Twitter or in the Vatican web, let's say, because there are public spaces and you can play with them. And augmented reality is the link here, because you can manipulate a web unless you are a hacker, but you can place art over it with augmented reality. So there is a lot of this could be a whole chat, I think.
Also, I can see some of the collection on like digital public space on Maker's Place as well, which is really really cool.
One of them, the Malachi wall, doesn't exist in 4 years ago, I think, but is available if you go to the place. It's in a school. You use augmented reality and you see the wall again. It's the one with the mushroom. So this is the thing I find interesting. I imagine for a festival that has 80 walls, some festivals erase and paint over it, so you can do layers. This was in the 2010, this was in the 22, and you can add sound, for example, with a little speech of the artist, for example, and you can link it. In this case, you can link it to the Maker's Place. If you go in the augmented reality, the options will send you to the NFT. So you can use a lot of links. Yeah. And this, I think I wrote, is 2015, and they erased it, I think, in 2016 or 17. So I went into the place. I take a picture of the facade, is erase it, and I think it's red nowadays, and use as a trigger for the whole wall. And I think this is
that's incredible.
A good case, because I am talking with a lot of them nowadays for the drops and so on, and they are now having more ideas of this kind. Okay, wow, okay, I was painting in the street, but now I can. They are starting to think about digital too, and this is the reason I think is the bridge, because street artists work mostly strictly analogical, and they never go digital because they don't find a purpose. When you explain them the purpose or an utility, they say, okay, this is how it works. And for example, Sabek has some animations too, in frame by frame, painting some walls. Senor X is not in Makerspace, but he's always doing digital artworks. And I think it's the same as happened to me when I worked with them. A lot of ideas and techniques I stole from them. Now they are understanding how to mix these worlds. I never was there in Russia, but this world exists. So for me, it's the same. And of course, it's how you choose the picture and how you do it. In this case, he did the picture from the crane.
Wow, this is incredible. I really like this too, this piece.
Yeah, they are dope. I always say that the 51%.
This is London?
Yeah.
It's London.
Yeah. He lives there, in Senor X. I always say that the merit of this piece is 51% or more are from them. I just animate their idea, and I try always not to remove or add nothing they don't place. I want to respect them as the same. I know most of them personally, so I try always to respect to their personality or their approach to the street, and so I love that a lot. I learn a lot from them. In these cases, I stop my mind. I just listen to them, and I try to adapt to their idea, because sometimes I could do another things, but I try only keep in the frame. For example, if you go back, the Elisa Capdevila one is the most subtle one. This one in the top right. The animation is very subtle. It's only in the plant and in the hands right. Yeah. And the painting in the back has a little motion. And I did it like this because the paint was. I was there this month when she was painting it. I was taking the pictures all the week, so I meet her. And she is really calm and really really lovely and really. So I try to adapt to their style with my. It's easy to put there a flashing light and I don't know a beer dancing, but I prefer to do it subtly. In this case, in the Senior X, you see that it's more crazy because he's more crazy and a really active guy and blah, blah, blah. So for me, it's really important to meet them.
This is awesome. We have actually a question from the audience too. So Nitika is asking, could you ask about his inspiration behind the artwork Inner Search that's in Genesis collection?
Yeah. I loved it. Yeah, the Inner Search is the guy swimming, and the inspiration. I always say that I write a lot of little quotes, and most of my, let's say, my abstract gifts are not born from nothing. It's just a conversation between the screen and the eye, and this is good, looks good, nice here. But these other more poetic works, like Inner Search, is the translation of a quote like this. All what I was telling you about the social networks and not being present on them, the quote was, Inner Search is not in the web history. This is the quote, because sometimes we are valued for what people see us in the internet, but our inner search is not on the internet. Nobody can know what we lived. So the way to translate it is a guy swimming in a black eternal sea, and the lines you see are like data. I am swimming because I never was on social networks, but I studied them a lot. So it was like swimming in this kind of data between the, how you say when you swim in the other direction of the river.
Against the current.
Okay, so like in eternal swimming against the data that I was perceiving in a black sea, but in eternal swimming, because I never stop. I know I don't stop to cry. Oh, this is not working. I keep working. I keep working. And nowadays, this piece was donated by Manta NFT to the museum, and I feel really good because it was really symbolic that this was the first one. I did it, I think, in 2017 as a kind of summary my experience of swimming alone with no social networks, blah, blah, blah. And finally in the museum is like, okay, it's really symbolic. And the inspiration is like this. It's just the way to translate some quotes I have, because words are image. So if and gifts and quotes are gifts, because some little quote you can translate it into a gift. And when I don't know what to do, I just take my notebooks and look for a little quote. Oh, this is good. I translate it. But thanks for asking this about Inner Search. Is really symbolic.
Well, yeah, I was actually also looking at a piece that you have on Maker's Place, which is gif.text. And I wanted to just kind of maybe take it's loading now, but take a little bit of time to chat about also so for example, you mentioned before that you're a poet, you're a photographer, you're a musician. I think specifically I also speak to a lot of creators who wouldn't define themselves as digital artists, but are maybe writers. And I'd love to explore with you how you take this creative practice and kind of the input and the output, how does that happen?
Yeah, I in my case the words, and let's not confuse poetry with poem, because poem is a question of format. You can write a poem with no poetry at all, and for me poetry is what you don't see of what you see. Okay, the perfect example is an ad. An ad is the perfect poetry. You see something, but they are trying to tell you another thing. So in my case, with using words, I learned to see. When you are with somebody in the street and you see something poetry, the other guy is not seeing it, but you say, hey, look that, it looks like blah blah blah. They say, oh, what this is photography too. Is the capacity of being the poetry inside the world, no? So in this case, for the book, this was born more like a way of avoiding censorship here in Spain, because some years ago there was a book about the narcos here in Galicia that is called oh shit, I can't remember the name now. Well, I will tell you. Well, it was censored. They want to censor the book, and I was thinking, okay, a book is a book because it's a PDF or it's a GPG with pictures. But what if I do a GIF in which frame is a page of a book, and I put on the internet? People will see only this, a GIF moving. Go, 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 go. But people don't know or know, but it's not really common that you can print a GIF. If you open a GIF in your computer and click print, they will print your printer each frame in each page. So you can
No
have a book.
way.
Yeah, and in this case, the idea was in 2015, but I never did it because I don't have blockchain, and it will be more like a PDF or a GIF in the internet. So I propose Marketplace to do that because this is a book, but it's not a book because it's a piece of GIF art, but it's a GIF art because you can print it. So it's fungible and it's not fungible too. And at the same, the cover is in augmented reality and leads you to the piece of the birds. And if you print it, the frames you see in the middle of the birds is an animation, an analogical animation. And if you see it in Twitter, you can stop it because each of these pages are a short story. It's not a book. Each page is a different story, and they don't have order. They are random. And I wrote them I think 2 years ago or something like that. So you can stop it in Twitter, and each frame is a different story. It's only in Spanish. I prefer to do in Spanish because I use a lot of play words, and the translation can be crazy. But for example, Case Set A is a guy from Twitter offered me to translate it, so I think I will do it in the future. But this is a GIF, but it's a book, but it's a fungible and non-fungible piece. It's printable, it's an animation, and it's more things that I won't say because they are hidden there inside. I use a lot of cryptic stuff. But thanks for asking for this piece because I think
It's amazing.
not everybody's
I didn't
understand.
actually, I didn't know that. I mean, now that you explained, like there's so much more than this, but it's something that it's really interesting to like see. I think you mentioned before like experimentation, right? And I think like the blockchain and just the environment in general like provides for this and allows for this. Like you don't really have to, work on
Yeah,
uh, anyone else's ways and rules. So
yeah,
it's not like to me, what I enjoy like seeing and talking about is like these uh it's not new ways of doing art. It's just experiments,
yeah.
which can be like part conceptual, part literature, part whatever.
It's like
Like
a
they
new,
don't.
like a new table to work on.
Yeah.
Before we have a table with the classic tools, but blockchain is not only it's a tool itself. It's not just the place where you put your artwork. It's how you understand it. So this point is something I'm feeling with new people arriving, that they get over, how you say, blind with the concept of NFT and money, and then they forgot about the environment. And this is the same that if you go in the jungle with not knowing what kind of animals are poisonous or not. You are, this is the jungle, the river is beauty, but you go there without thinking about that, you will have pain. But I think this is a problem that is being nowadays, because people is not studying the blockchain, but they are focusing too much in the NFT, and the NFT is just a flower of the jungle. But it's good because when they discover is okay, I have to now understand all the environment. And sometimes this is the point that people, because I talk with a lot of artists and street artists, and the point that they don't like usually is this, is having to learn another language. But I told them, evolution don't wait, you have to, or you understand this, or don't worry, keep on your own, and you don't have, it's not essential to be on the blockchain and crypto art to keep being artist, because this is one thing I don't like too much, that it seems that if you are not in the blockchain, you are not an artist anymore, and this is false, because it's the same as we only consider music from the MP3. All the people behind is this is the same. So this I don't like too much, because we are overlooking a lot of incredible artists, literally, that this is the point, and they were building the language of digital art. Crypto art is the bones, is the consequence, is not the people. You said that before. For people, digital art was born in crypto art, and is exactly the opposite.
I like the analogy that you make with blockchain being like the bones and the structure.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, It's
This, this is a kind of quotes I wrote, but to understand myself, and then maybe this turns into a GIF in the future. I don't know. So I take note too. Thank you.
we have one other question, and then maybe we can see if there's anything else or wrap it up. So, hello,
Yeah.
would love to hear more about rescuing ancestral artifacts in Ritual Devices series on Super Rare.
Yeah, perfect because the this was born from a concept I was thinking about digital archaeology, and because one day I was thinking about GIFs and animations and what will be the first animation or GIF mode thinking in human, and I found that in Egypt about 4,000 years before Christ, there is a tomb with a sequence. I have documented. I have actually an animation about it. I never publish it because I want to do a quick making of how I research it, because I found the place. I found a book in archive.org, archive.org, this web where is a lot of
Hmm.
all the stuff. I found a book about wrestling, fighting, and inside of this book there was the animation, well, the animation, a picture made in the 60s of this tomb, and I rescued them and blah blah blah. So by this time, I was interested in digital archaeology, let's say, and I was doing a lot of digital crate digging, like looking in old webs and looking for raw material to rescue them. So in this process, I was finding a lot of artifacts, like but just sketches, painting, or old photos, that artifacts from the Mayas or from the Egyptians or from the Chinese people. So I found a good way to create a series using these old artifacts that in the past were used for something ritual, and I always relate GIF with ritual because GIF is like the visual mantra. It's like when you go to the Tibetans and they are singing the mantras, that are sounds that make you get connected, let's say. GIF for me has the same power of visual mantra. When you connect with a GIF, you lose the sense of time. So I try to connect this kind of all artifacts. I can't remember them, but some were Assyrians, another from Egypt, and well, there are 11. I have only published 4, and the way was using these pictures to translate into a new format like GIF, and using a really minimal style that I'm using this since past year. I know more than 1 year I'm using this kind of minimal works, because when this kind of minimal linear work makes you can follow each pixel by your own, and you can get a really good mantra following the lines. I think is what happened in my brain when I do, and then I think this will happen to more people. This was the first,
I
I think, and
These
it was.
are absolutely incredible. I was also, whilst I was I'm aware of your work since a long time, especially from like Hic et Nunc.
Yeah.
But I was also wondering the decision or uh, the use of like black and white and not having colors. Is it like why do you do that?
Yeah, thanks for asking, and I know why perfectly. I mean, I use color too, of course, but since some times ago, I realized that I am more interested in the thing than in the color. I'm interested in a car, for example. I don't care if it's yellow or red. I'm interested in the thing, and then more philosophically, or how you want to say, is more that colors are ornaments. Just this, and if I can create the same and provoke the same with adding colors, for me is better, because it's easy to do something dramatic using red, for example, because we know the codes of the brain, that green is more peaceful, blue is more colorful, and red is more blah blah blah. So this is for the, let's say, the psychological reason, but there is a reason, a technical reason too, is that GIF has a limit of colors. It has 2, 5, 6 colors max. You can use more. So the more colors you use, the bigger will be the GIF. So I was trying like a bonsai to do something consistent but small. So I was starting to cut colors, because now these ones are strictly black and white. There are no grays. The grays are generated by the density of the whites. So I was doing black and white photo and video and GIF, but since last year I am cutting even more the palette of black. So nowadays it's black and white. But another thing is that the black and white artworks resist better time because they don't tire your eyes. Or I'm adding more that people is now having digital canvases too. If you want to have in your home, for me, it will be really annoying having one light all day, yellow and black, and But something black and white is not light, and this is the reason I use black also because it's more calm to be shown, and I think it's more meditative. I think I always say that X-rays, music, and books are in black and white, but you can say red in black and white, and people will see red. It's just something more about my philosophical thing and trying to translate into art, but I use color, and in my own work I'm not using a lot of color these days because I already use with street arts, so I am drinking the color from them. I satisfy, let's say, my thirst of color with them, and then in my own work and I think it's also because I live mostly by night. In Galicia it's always cloudy and rain, and I was born in a place that was a very industrial nature because I have a lot of forest, but at the same time we have the biggest coal mine in Europe with a 300 meters chimney. So I think that this also influences in how we create. I think if I live more by day, I think it will be more green.
I mean, I'm a big, I'm a big fan of black and white. That's like, been very much. I definitely have some form of, I don't know why. I have definitely an attraction towards like black and white type of like artworks, or in general like work and color. I feel like a lot of the time what you're saying that color can distract is true. And I do definitely like feel like it makes you focus on the details more when
Yeah,
it's like
but
just
not distract in a bad sense, but more to add meaning sometimes. Like the perfect example, if the list of Schindler, the film of the Nazis, and
Mhm, yeah, of course.
in this film there is a girl that has a red dress. All the film is in black and white, but at a certain point, just for a few seconds, they use red,
Yeah.
and this is okay. This is well used because it's not to distract, it's to add meaning. So if you want to add meaning, add color. But when I think that when you don't have something to tell, you have to put a lot of ornaments. It's like the Baroque. In the Baroque, it's like this: a lot of ornaments, a lot of blah, because it was empty. It was just more the visual impact more than the idea. And I think I try the opposite because nowadays with all the computers we have and plugins and effects, it's really easy to do something impact for the eye. It's really easy. We have presets. The hard for me is saying something with very little is the hard for me. And when it happens to me with another artist, I fall in love instantly. I always say the example of Lucas Aguirre. I met him past year when I saw only one work of him. I said, this guy is understanding everything because he is understanding his format. He's working a lot with virtual reality, but he's making a bridge with his old work that was painting in the streets and painting in paintings, and he's doing the same, but now in virtual reality, and he how can I say, he don't put a lot of things to distract. Everything he put is to add meaning. And on the other hand, I see a lot of people doing crazy things that this is incredible, but nothing to read. And I respect it, I consume it, but I forget it. The next week I think, I can, but another kind of work, like I don't know, David Leeser, for example, or Negative Vibrations. The Kidmograph is a classic, or P.S. Lysis. This kind of people is, I see a GIF of them and I recognize them at first sight, and I don't forget them. And when 2 years passed, I think, this must be a good artwork because it's still here in my mind. And maybe my conscious don't like totally, you understand? But this is when I have to, okay, maybe this is not art for me, but for my brain is. So I must accept that this is art, maybe because my brain is enjoying it.
Absolutely. All of the artists you mentioned are amazing. Actually, Kidmograph, Gustavo, he was one of the first artists I ever interviewed here, like back last year. I think it was November. So yeah,
Yeah,
incredible
I,
work.
I remember, and I always use him as an example of real OG, because I when I entered Tumblr, he already was there, and I told him that for me was an inspiration, not only about the artistic side, because we work in different concepts, but how he was focusing GIF art. I think, oh, this guy is focusing perfectly what I want to do, and I use him as a reference. And the same with PS Lysis, because when I started, I think he was 17, maybe. He was really young, and he had, even today is active, a Tumblr that he was promoting a lot, helping a lot of GIF artists. He was doing like, this month we will do something about the snow. So you send your GIF about the snow, and he is the GIF artist collective. It's called the Tumblr, and this kind of people for me was inspiration in the artistic side, of course, but then in the human side. That's how you focus what you are doing, not only doing it, because there are a lot of artists that do crazy things, but then you have to understand how to move it and how to show and how to explain what you do. If not, will be forgotten, I think. And I focus in these guys, for example, and they are still active, and they are nowadays alive, and it's really, really nice to see that they were right 10 years ago.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I'm looking forward to seeing your DM on like artists that I should chat to and interview, because I'm super open to any interviews and chats like this. Absolutely. I think the space needs definitely more of this.
Sure, I will write you a couple of names. You will. I think you already know them. But I think because I talked with them a lot by email years ago, and I think and I must say that you do really good questions. So I think they will enjoy as much as me, for sure.
Awesome, thank you. Well, Adrian, it was really nice to speak. So thank you so much for your time. It was an amazing chat, and have a good rest of your day.
No, my pleasure, and insist. Huge thanks for this kind of spaces. I think they are really needed, and hope to see more guys soon here. Thanks a lot
for sure.
for Nicole. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Good day.